theory. Okay, so this is basically called behaviorist theory. That means it is based on the behavior of the particular organism. So that's why it is called behaviorist theories. Okay, so as it is called behavior theory or behavioristic theory. So let us understand what kind of best things they have used. So uh, so in this he says that it is the one of the best known, it is the one of the best known aspects of behavioral learning. So behavioral learning, okay, and he has developed the classical conditioning by involving the animals experiment. So we will see. So he has involved the classical. We will understand what is this classical conditioning, and how which animal he has used to experiment, and 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 this Evan Pavlos. He was from Russia. He is a Russian physiologist. He was a Russian physiologist. Name is Ivan Pavlos. Okay. Now let us see what is classical conditioning. Let us see what is this. Let us see what is classical conditioning. Now, classical conditioning is a form of associative learning. This is also called associative, where you will be associating different strategies to learn. So it is called associative learning. It is called associative learning. So the original and the most famous example of this classical conditioning involves salivary conditioning. So he has discovered this saliva. You know, saliva. When you want to eat something, you will get water from the mouth, right? So that is called saliva. So conditioning, salivary conditioning of Pavlos. It is famous. Pavlos is famous for the dog experiment. So salivary conditioning, he has used dog. He has used a dog in an experiment. So let us understand. See, during his research on the physiology of digestion in dog, Pavlos, he himself noticed that rather than simple salivating in the presence of meat powder, the dog began to salivate in the presence of lab technical who normally fed them. That means, here, what happened? An innate response of the food that he called unconditional responses. We will see what is unconditional responses as well. One second, just hold on to. Yeah. First of all, let us, before we move to the experiment, let us understand the classical conditioning, and then we will understand in detail. Okay. Now, see, conditioning. Conditioning means it's a behavior psychology. First of all, no, it is classical. Yeah, conditioning is a behavioral psychology. Conditioning in behavioral psychology is a theory that the reaction, that means this experiment is all about reaction. Uh, Reaction. So this is reaction means responses. Some response from the person. When you ask something, you get some response. So the conditioning, this experiment is based on the responses to an object. Okay, so when you show some object, the child will respond, the child will reply, child will react. So it is all based on object means some stimuli. Now how you can understand, for example, if you are getting an itching in a hand, or for example the stimuli is pin, if I pinch you, you will get a pain, so that is a response. Okay, if I show a food to the animal, what happen, it will start, or he will start salivating, the saliva start coming out. Okay, so by a person or animal can be modified by the learning. So here, when you teach some child or a person with an object, he will learn, he will give a response. So by person can be modified by learning. See, you have to understand that classical conditioning is nothing but a reaction to an object. If I am teaching someone to some object, he will respond, no, this is right, or he will learn. So that can be modified, by learning or conditioning. Learning, here the conditioning is nothing but learning. Okay, so it is all about the responses and the stimulus. Okay, so the conditioning is nothing but changing the behavior of the individual by applying some objects, by using some objects. Learning is nothing, conditioning. Conditioning means shaping the behavior, changing the behavior. Okay, so that is your classical conditioning. And later they have given. So there is a concept called SR. SR, that means S means stimulus and R means response. When you give a stimulus, then there will be a response. That's why it is called SR theory. It is also called SR theory. It is also called behavior theory. It is also called salivary conditioning of Pavlov's theory. It is also called classical conditioning. So this is also called SR theory because you are giving a stimulus and you are observing the response. So this is and it is also called principles of conditioning. It is also called a principles of conditioning. They are based on the assumption that a human behavior is learned. So in that way, you are going to check. That means human behavior. So if anybody asks you how you can change the behavior, you can say based on the principle of conditioning. What is conditioning? When you give some object to the individual, they will modify their behavior. Suppose some student is crying. If you give a toy, he will stop. That means toy is your stimulus. Response is becoming a silence. So that is stimulus and response. Because you have given the object, so he became silent. Because we have beat, he is crying. Beating is a stimulus, crying is the responses. Got it?
Yes.
So this conditioning means changing, shaping. That means something has been changed. Learning, or learning modification.
Yes.
That means changing of some behavior. That is your conditioning. Okay, now let us go in detail and understand further. See, let us understand what is a stimulus Then see, for example, this is stimulus and this is response and this is reinforcement. Okay. Now here you can see the stimulus, here you can see the response, and here you can see the reinforcement. Okay. Now stimulus. Now stimulus is what? It is provided by the instructor. So provided by teacher, you can say, or instructor. Okay, teacher or instructor, because stimulus is always given by the teacher, given by the those who are teaching the student. Okay, and the response is by learner. Now who is the learner? Student are the learners. So response is given by the learner, stimulus is provided by the instructor. Now see here, this one, reinforcement provided by the instructor. Provided by instructor. Okay, so stimulus, reinforcement is provided by instructor, response is given by the learner, that means students. This is like a teacher or any stakeholder who is teaching the child, or any stakeholder. Reinforcement is also the same, given by the teacher or any other. Now how the behavior is changing. Now see here, this is how it is going to change. It is all cyclic process. Okay. Now if you have presented the stimulus, let us see, you have started there 1 2 3 and then again 1. So stimulus, that means teacher has given some stimulus to the student. So there is a response by the student. When there is a response, he got a reinforcement. Okay. So when there is a reinforcement, again the teacher will provide a stimulus to learn the new task. Is it okay? Is this clear?
Again, the teacher will provide stimulus, right?
Again?
Again, after reinforcement, why the teacher will provide stimulus?
Yeah. For example, see, teacher is teaching how to cook, the or how to cook curry. Okay, so let us say this is one goal. This is my goal. So now teaching this cooking, there are different steps, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
So for example, first step, she has given some instruction. Let us say stimulus is your instruction or some sort of picture or anything. So when she has given the instructor, the first step is to show picture. So this is your stimulus. So first step, stimulus, teacher showed picture. Student respond by looking or listening or holding or responding something. So as he has done a right job, teacher reinforced the child. Good job, you have done it. Then again stimulus. Then next stimulus is something like that. So again it is cyclic process, right? It's not like once the child has achieved, you have to continue, master the activity, no?
So, we are going to other activity after reinforcement.
Yeah, so again the reinforcement will be provided. You can provide on the same activity, you can provide on the different activity.
No, again after reinforcement, it is going to stimulate, no?
Yeah, stimulus means
So
activity, task.
again, after reinforcement, why it is going back to stimulus?
You're not going to stop only till reinforcement now. Again it is going to stimulus, because so that it can be practiced, so that the learning behavior change, so that this learning behavior change completely. Okay, so learning behavior will change when you practice multiple time, not one time. This is one trial. One cycle is
Oh,
one trial. In one trial,
oh,
he has learned, but this is an acquisition. I told you, acquisition,
so
maintenance, and generalization.
again the same thing, that's
Yes, again
analyze
same thing. Yes,
practice.
yes. You can teach same thing, or else you can go with the other activity. In other activity also, first is stimulus only. But make sure that you practice one activity at least number of days, more than 10 days.
Okay.
See, stimulus here is nothing but event, things that evoke a specific reaction in an organism. It must evoke. Evoke means it must give some trigger. It must trigger to the organism. Now, organism means student. This one is student. So when you evoke student, 100% he will give some responses, right? The reaction. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Now, uh,
What is this accusation,
acquisition, maintenance,
maintenance,
and generalization.
and
This is I just told you, that is not important because this is required in that. Okay. Okay. uh, when we move to the next, let us say there are certain major learning conditionings. Okay, so there are three major types of learning. So first one is which we are discussing, which is called learning through association. That is your called classical conditioning, which we are discussing now. Okay. Second one is your learning through consequences, which is called operant conditioning. And third one is your learning through observation, which is called modeling or observation learning. Okay, so there are three major types of learning. One is learning through association, which is called classical conditioning, which we are learning now. After that, operant conditioning. After that, you have modeling. Okay, so now let us understand in detail what is classical conditioning. Okay, now classical conditioning. In classical conditioning, see, first of all, we have already seen it is a learning process that occurs through association. That means it is an see, classical, I will write a short form. Classical conditioning is a learning process that occurs through association. Between an environment, stimulus, and naturally occurring naturally occurring stimulus. Now, see, this classical conditioning, as it is mentioned, classical conditioning is a learning process. Learning process that occurs through association, because it is also called association theory. Okay, because it is also called, which we have seen, it is also called association theory. So association between what? Between the environment stimuli, between the environment and naturally occurring stimulus. Okay, there will be one environment
Association.
joining. 1 plus 1 is association, which gives you 2. So that's why, to change the behavior, that's why when learning process is occurring, that means learning process is what? There should be teacher and a student, okay, with content. So teacher, student, content, teacher. So this is an tricycle, I mean to say triangle way of thing to understand. This is an environment. If the child want to learn, teacher has to be there, student has to be there, and content has to be there. Then it is called learning process. So likewise, the learning process will only occur when there is an environment stimulus and naturally occurring stimulus. Okay, now for example, environment means classroom. That means teacher know already what I have to teach. That is environmental stimulus. Naturally occurring means it happens by his own. That means it's a natural conditioning. It is not planned. Whereas some environment is planned, but which is some stimulus as natural occurring. For example, when
To do
teaching addition,
experience.
when teacher is teaching an addition in the environment, I mean to say in the classroom, teacher is planned to teach by showing or writing on the board 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Some student stood up and says, teacher, it is the same. When I add one pen, I have one pen, and if I take another pen from my friend, it becomes 2. So that is a natural occurrence, natural stimuli in learning process, because teacher had never planned that he will ask one pen to that student, right? That means the student himself has stimulated natural occurring stimulation. He has used natural occurring stimulus in learning process. Okay,
I did not get.
hello,
Yes,
what
I
happened?
did not get.
We did not get classical conditioning is nothing but it's a you know what is learning process? What is
Yes.
learning process? Learning process means there should be teacher,
Teacher,
student, and content.
student,
This is a
content.
learning process. If the child if you want to talk about learning process, there should be a teacher, there should be a student, there should be a content, right?
Right.
So teacher, student, content, that is equal to learning process. And how it is occurring, how this learning process will occur, you know what is the component, but how it will occur, how you will implement this learning process, Where you will implement this learning process? In the environment, right? So one classroom is your environment. This is environment stimuli. So when you fix this in the classroom, teacher is there, student is there, content is there. So this is, that means this learning process is occurring in the environment. This is environment. And also in the natural stimulus. Come out of the box. This is your natural stimulus. That means if teacher is teaching 1 plus 1 is equal to in a traditional way on writing on board, when they come out of the class, student asking teacher, teacher, I have 1 pen plus 1 pen is equal to 2. That means in the natural situation as well as in the environmental predetermined situation, the learning process is occurring. Here also the learning process will occur naturally, teacher, student and content. Here also student letter and content. This is the environment, predetermined environment, and this is a natural environment. Okay.
Outside the class.
Outside the class, yeah.
Anytime.
Anytime, yes.
That is natural.
That is learning process. That means classical conditioning.
That is natural learning.
What?
Natural. That is natural occurring.
Yeah, I will recall now. Yeah. Okay, we are talking about the Ivan Pavlovs, but we need to also talk about some personal, about Pavlovs. Then we can go to the theory. Now, see, Pavlovs, he born in the year 1849. Okay, he was awarded. He was awarded the degree in the year 1875. That means he has done his degree in 1875. Then he also awarded Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize is the richest prize. Okay, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1904. Okay, that means and he was awarded the Nobel Prize in medicine. Basically, he's a doctor, so he awarded the Nobel Prize in medicine to work on his physiology of digestion. Physiology of digestion. Physiology of digestion. So he awarded in this area, and finally he died in the year 1936. That means he awarded in the year 1936. Okay, yeah. So let us see the components of.
Is
Yes, tell me.
when it is a medicine.
Components of classical every time.
Medicine when it is.
I'm not able to hear you.
You was you are telling no Hindi medicine and somewhere.
Yeah. He received a medicine. Na? That means Pavlov born in the year 1849. He was awarded the degree of medicine in 1875 and also awarded the Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize is the high richest prize, okay? So by the world. So it was in the year 1904 in medicine. That means in area of doctorate, MBBS doctor. In on his work of physiology of digestion, like how people digest, why people are not able to get digestion. after eating food. So he has developed a theory for that. So in that theory, he got a Nobel Prize, and finally he died in the year 1936. This is the history. This is the history background, you can say, background of Ivan Pavlov. Okay, and then the components of classical condition. Now this is the main theory which we are going to learn in this. So in this we have certain components. Number one is your unconditioned stimulus. That means unconditioned unconditioned stimulus, that is called in short form UCS, that is unconditioned stimulus. Second component is your unconditioned unconditioned response. That means in short form it is called UCR, unconditioned response. Third one is the conditioned stimulus. Conditioned stimulus, that is called CS. And number fourth one is called conditioned response, that is called CR. So these are the four components in his theory of classical conditioning. Okay, so these four classical conditioning theories we need to discuss. So how it is involved, let us see some background of this, then we can move. Unconditioned response is the stimulus that naturally and automatically triggers. So uh, a stimulus that naturally and automatically triggers a response, that is called unconditional stimulus. So a stimulus that naturally and automatically triggers a response. Okay, so a stimulus that naturally and automatically triggers the responses. You know what is responses and what is stimulus now. So unconditioned, that means it is not fixed, it is automatic. For example, while sleeping, suddenly if something poke at your shoulder while sleeping, that is not planned, that is unconditional stimulus. Sometimes it is planned, or something, for example, while walking, suddenly you get pain or some sort of responses, so which is occurring automatically or naturally. Okay, then unconditioned response,
Why physical unconditioned?
because it is not planned. Condition means it is not a condition means plan, unconditioned means that occur automatically. Here unlearned responses that occur naturally. Unconditioned means naturally, you have to plan, which is not planned. In response, that means unlearned response that occur naturally in response to the unconditional stimulus. Okay, now see here, unconditional uh, unconditional response is unlearned response, which is not learned. That means that occurs naturally, which is not, I want that boy to respond on that particular object. Okay, that is a planned response. But unplanned or unlearned or unstimulated, That means unlearned response occurring in the natural environment in response to unconditional stimulus. Now, what is unconditional stimulus? You have seen first one, that is unconditional stimulus. That means naturally, if I get something, that triggers the response. Unconditional response is unlearned response that occur naturally in response to unconditional response. Got it?
Can you give example? Let's
How are you,
say,
sir?
but not
I'm fine. What's up? Done, huh? Good. How about your psychology? You said no psychology until once you inquired, right? Long back, remember? Not NIMH. Rehabilitation. Third. You have asked me regarding that. I remember. Then what happened? Oh my God. Okay. Uh-huh. You have asked me like PDCP, field or BEd. So finally, Ambedkar. Anyway, that is also good. ठीक है sir. बहुत दिन के बाद दिखे. Because lockdown has stopped everything. Now slowly it is starting. Let us see. It may take more. ना ठीक है sir. सब लोग ठीक है. ठीक है फोन में. I'll will interact. Yeah. Hello.
Sir,
Yeah.
you have on that recording just now before talking.
No. This is pause.
No,
Are.
no,
See, conditioning. This is before conditioning. You have understood, right?
so in point two, there is only stimulus, but not response.
Yes, there is UCR. That means there is a stimulus.
There is UCS,
This is CS, conditioned stimulus. Okay, but no response. Only you give a bell, no response by the dog. Okay, but during the condition, what happened? You give food plus bell. There will be a salivation. That is response. Okay, got it? So then next time after conditioning, what you will do? You will give only bell. You see a salivation because the dog is associated now. After conditioning, when you put only bell, and this is UCS plus CS, you get UCR, unconditional response. Now here you give only CS and then you got CR, conditional response. Got it? This is the theory of Pavlov's conditioning. I mean to say Pavlov's dog theory.
During conditioning,
During teaching. This you're going to teach, right? This is after teaching. Before teaching, during teaching, after teaching.
Food and bell leads to response.
Yes.
Then after teaching, with baloney response is there.
Yes. See, it is similar. Now, for example, if you want to teach the child a writing skill, okay? If you want to teach a writing skill, if you give a pencil, there will be no response, right? So when you use a pencil, if this is a pencil, if you use a pencil with some support, belly support, let us say a physical prompt, you will see some response. Next time what you will do, you will sorry, this might be the response. So you will remove the response, child will be writing independently. Okay. So this, for example, this side is shadowed with pencil. This is because this is a thing, right? And this is the support. When you give a support, there is no response. But still, when you give a support plus pencil, there will be response. Next time, what you will do, you will remove the
I
support.
did not get.
Hmm?
I did not
See, when you want
understand.
the child to write, you have to give us some support. Child is not able to hold the pencil. When you give a support plus pencil you have in a hand, child is writing, right?
Support payments and
Conditioned response.
teaching.
Support, holding the child of the mother is holding a child's hand while writing.
Okay.
Response. So next time what you will do, you will remove the support, only you will give the pencil. That means only pencil. Conditioned response and conditioned response.
Mm.
Okay.
The first one was unconditional principle.
Yes.
Teacher holding the child's hands to write.
Yes.
The
So
second one, no support, so teach conditional response.
yeah. Okay.